Greetings and welcome to what is a very, very powerful Tier 8 MBT. It combines the armor of the Challenger, a better gun than the Leopard 2A4 Revolution, and some ERA of course into basically what is a block with a really big fucking cannon attached. It's the Hussein hybrid. It has a smoothbore gun, which the British still haven't used yet for whatever reason. Has ERA, and it's a Challenger. What's not to love? So, unfortunately, unlike the rest of the tanks, or fortunately, depending on how you're seeking, it doesn't come with any options. Instead, it gets a spore liner and an ERA package, which does help quite a bit. It gets better smoke grenades. It gets a soft kill. It gets a hard kill APS system with a 30-second reload time, which is pretty decent. It gets a day-night system, it gets a rangefinder, it gets an improved loader, which you should most definitely go for, but the first thing you want to go for with this tank is those AP shells. 476 to 581 damage, very standard NATO MBT AP shells we're talking about here, but the penetration of 825 is incredibly good for its tier. In fact, it may be on the same level that the Type 96B with the tier 10 gun may have, which is very good indeed. And you also get improved suspension and an improved air induction pre-cleaner. So at the moment for this tank I'm choosing Cortez. However, there are quite a few commanders you can use with this. Obviously there's the option of Cortez. If you want to go full hit points, you can go with Alicia, who will give you, well, the tank already has 4,000 hit points, but with Alicia you'll get 4,500, so that's an extra 500 boost, and as well as also the perks of Alicia you'll get as well. Other commanders wise to use, there's actually quite a big selection. You can use Freya for the accuracy, Fedor / Maximilian Koenig for the accuracy and pretty much overall buff to the tank with Fedor or Max. There's also the option of using Gaia, who will give you the ability to get more stuff if you bounce shells, but not really recommended that much. There's also the option of using Philip for, I guess, an overall repair speed increase, really, I guess. And lastly, we have Rachel Kramer, who will give you an improved reload speed increase per enemy within 50 meters, but not really that much of a good idea considering this is actually quite a slow tank for its tier. And then we also have Victor. I'm pretty much sure all of you know what Victor does at this point, so I don't really need to gloss about that. And there is in fact the new French commander Vincent Girard, who gives you 8% increase to your reload speed when you bounce something, pretty nice. He gives you some more hit points, which is also pretty good as well, and also gives you better aim speed and some pretty much other buffs as well. So compared to its contemporaries, we're going to do that first. Let's compare it to the Ariete. Well, first of all, let's compare it to other NATO style MBTs. So Revo, 2A5, Abrams, and the Macabre. And as you can see there, it has roughly the same damage as the rest do, with the Mercury B bars having a little less and the Abrams having the highest and the Abrams having the highest punch. It does have an excellent penetration here, 825, which is more than the Leopards do. Very good. It also has a very comparable DPM to the rest of them. With Cortez it's obviously higher, and it also has a very good slunk of hit points. In fact, it has the highest in its tier, since the Merkava 2 Baz here, Merkava 3 Baz over here is using Alicia, I believe. So highest hit points in its tier base. Very good hull armor, very good turret armor, camouflage pretty much usual, and the base standard view range on the move. Also the base standard minus 10 of gun depression, with the rest, with the Merkava having the worst, and pretty decent spread, aim time and turret traverse speed. Comparing it to the rest of the MBTs in the tier, to the, well, they're all at the back, give me a second, to the B, and the 99. And of course the oh, I do make the silliest of mistakes. So compared to the rest of them, as you can see here, it actually has the highest penetration of any tier 8 MBT in the game, but also lags behind its contemporaries. However, it has a very meaty chunk of hit points compared to the rest of them, 565 more if you're counting with Alicia. So this is very much a tank. This is a take and hold vehicle. So other slots you want to use possibly is a pretty good chunk of AP shells. The heat shells are pretty decent as well. 700 penetration is pretty much bog standard for a NATO smoothbore of this tier. Usual surplus crates part and everything. And lastly, I've gone with an improved Pioneer toolkit, gun breach, and a survivability kit, as you usually do with challengers, as they will get shot at a lot. Now this thing does have an armor weakness, but for the crew skills wise, we'll get to that armor weakness later. For the crew skills wise, I will go for off-road driving and field repair. For the gunner, aim speed and probably preventative maintenance. And for the loader, secured ammunition, the Challenger has 2 ammo racks. As every Challenger does, it has behind the turret bustle and behind and the turret rear as well. And the turret rear is never really that well armoured, so having your reload speed not reduced when either of them are here is definitely a good thing. And lastly, the rest is up to you, and personally I would probably go for safety. So that armour model wise. So let's have a look at this thing without the ERA package when it loads. So as you can see here, pretty much has roughly the stock armor of the Challenger, 500 lower play with a little bit of weakness there. The gunner sight is, the driver's sight is 713, which means that it can be penetrated by just about a bunch of other MBTs in the same tier, and the turret ring is generally quite difficult to hit. Side armor wise, stock, pretty much 0 armor just about everywhere really. However, some decent size scraping potential may occur, but unfortunately that big lump of green in the back will not help, and also the fact the engine deck as well. Now here with the ERA package, it does change significantly, as you can see here. A good part of the tank has been added on. There's also a bunch more red everywhere, which is pretty decent, which allows this tank to go fully hold down. And if this thing does go fully hold down, you're in for a bit of a trouble, as the only thing you can really pen is going to be that driver's hatch, which usually you can block with the gun, or at least try to fuck with people with. So regardless, a couple of ERA blocks on the side, but for the most part the overall protection versus AP rounds of the same tier doesn't change. So let's change this to a missile unit of the same tier. I would like to pick the absolute worst missile you can face on this tier is going to be the BMPT. So BMPT, 950 pen. Let's see how this goes. So lots of pen over there, lots of green. However, it seems that side scraping versus them may actually be a good thing, as you can see here. What about the stock armor? Yeah, definite upgrade I'd say versus missiles. So ERA package, AP shells should be first, as it definitely helps. So I guess we might as well have a look at some games. Now the first game will be with Cortez, I believe, and the second game will be Vincent, the new French commander. So let's see how the raw firepower that Cortez gives you, and all the aim time and the hit points Vincent gives you. Let's see the difference about them. So in terms of a twist, I actually have Vincent as the commander today. So with Vincent we have 4,500 hit points, which is, well, a lot of tier 10s would want 4,500 hit points, so this is going to be a very difficult tank to get out of position with. Overall speaking, is this the new tier 8 meta tank? Well, it depends really. The Revo is a lot faster, it also has spaced armor, and it does have better gun stats to begin with. The T-72Bs and the Type 96B have better DPM and are much faster. The Merca 3 Baz has the burst damage, of course. So overall speaking, if you want something that's going to take and hold and be able to basically weather the storm, and well, that 825 pen will allow you to go through even a lot of tier 10s. Hell, you'll be able to go through an Object 490 with this. So if you want something like that, then it pretty much looks like the Al Hussein is going to be the tank for you. This pretty much feels like more of a Merkava style tank than anything else, really. So this is just going to be to show you how much damage this thing can take, really. However, its gun depression does seem to waver a bit. I feel like the ERA panels are actually a nuisance when it comes to this vehicle. So the first couple of minutes of this game are pretty much box standard as usual. None of the enemies really able to penetrate me, in all honesty. The heat shells do around 200 damage to a Ramka, which is actually quite nice. They may have done more with Cortez, but overall that Ramka over there didn't really know what he was doing. The big slug of hit points means you can actually take a full salvo of a Ramka hitting you with this, and you'll be able to come out relatively swinging. Now, unfortunately, this thing is quite slow. It seems to be basically an even heavier challenger, so I wouldn't really bet on you being able to go anywhere particularly fast with this. But at the very least, this thing is basically covered with armor, so low tiers, same tiers, even some tier 9s are going to have problems with you, because at the very least you're able to penetrate just about all of them, which will make you a very unpleasant target for vehicles that are more powerful than you. 7.84 second reload time is pretty decent, and as you can see there, I lost about half a second of reload time. Well, I lost half a second of reload time when bouncing damage. So, Vincent's for you. Vincent also gives you a aim speed increase at the cost of overall accuracy, but when does that matter? The only commander you're ever going to go to for accuracy is Freya, and that's to get your railguns on the Sabra, so he seems to be a pretty fun commander, but nothing really special. At this point, this does seem to be more of the better things you can do with this. If the enemy was intent on taking this position, then they would have a very unpleasant time taking this. Even with the basic hit points of 4,000, it will take them at least a minute of constant firing to be able to dislodge this, and at that time I'll be able to shoot back at them. So the game does start to heat up in a couple of minutes. Unfortunately, when it comes to these kind of games, it can be a bit of a drag. I'm sorry about that. And as you can see, overall the enemy hasn't really been able to do much damage to this yet. But soon, that will change. As you can see there, 565 damage, pretty much the same as, well, the other NATO tanks apart from the Abrams, so, yeah. They're not exactly the punchiest in the world, and they do fall out quite a bit when compared to the Russian and the Chinese ones, but with Cortez, of course, he'll be rolling almost 600 every time. So for now, we have a Leopard 2A4 Revolution to take care of at some point, and he's going to be very distracted with the enemy. So now we should be able to move up and get behind him. Hey, how's it going? At this point, I was kind of hoping to see if I could ram him, but yes! That amused me. And we're both using the Chaos Camouflage, which I actually don't mind. I wish there was a base paint you could put over the Chaos Camo, but that's fair enough. Tank very much slow into a crawl here when... Slow. So, a bunch more of the enemy coming around. My initial thoughts at this point is to dislodge that Leclerc prototype over there, then go for the rest of the enemies, and then get the rest. There's a bunch of them running around, but thanks to the very decent chunk of hit points I have, I could actually conceivably get into combat with 3 of them and still come out swinging. So this is basically a challenger with a bigger gun and more armor, and it's a tier 8, so it's a thing. And unfortunately low tiers can actually go through the lower plate on this thing, but at the very least, given the size of it, it's not really that much of a hindrance if you go hold down. So its armor scheme does seem to be relatively balanced. However, the penetration and the hit points do seem to be a little bit tad excessive. That kind of penetration of hit points is, some tier 10s don't have that. And you're running around at tier 8 with it. So you're a very unpleasant target for just about everybody that has to go near you. Now I would like you to observe the beating this thing takes, and even then I still don't really need to give that much of a shit about the enemy. So Hussein moves up. Okay. Even if he does 500 damage to me, it's going to take him 7 rounds to do so. So I don't really have to be particularly bothered with that. Never hit taken by the clerk. I still have 2,000 hit points left. Bit of a screw by me there, but hey, how's it going? So anyway, at this point we can gladly go for that Hussein. Just give it a while. It's kind of slow. I'm unsure if filter systems will help that much. He's shot at by the clerk over there, but now we just have to keep moving forward. We can take care of him later. Or soon. I was kind of hoping that would be a penetrating hit, but I don't believe it is. It was not. So this Hussein seems to
Identify.
kind of unsure what he's doing at this point, but as you can see here they can penetrate each other relatively easy, so it's not going to be like with the Challenger 1s or the Challenger 2s where it takes half an hour to kill each other. The penetration and everything will allow you to basically take on an Hussein relatively quickly. So at the very least fights between them are going to be short and sweet. Kind of trying to remember if I actually get the kill on this guy or not. Do I? Oh no, the game ends. So, let's have a look at another game now, with Cortez this time. So, this time we're using Cortez and... well, I guess since it's going to be a couple of minutes towards we actually get to the action, let's go through an overview on the relative power balance between the Hussein and the other tier 8s in tier 8. Now, tanks that can threaten you on a one-to-one basis will be the Leopard 2A4 Revo, the Leopard 2A5, both of which have 800 pens. They're able to butter you relatively quickly. They have relatively decent amount of hit points, so while you'll probably win a fight with them one-on-one, you will come out with a lot of damage taken. And hold down, if they are, you'll very likely lose such encounter. The Merca 3 Baz also has a very high burst damage, and if it pens you with all 4 of its rounds, you can probably forget about winning said fight, especially if that commander is either using Cortez or Alicia. Tanks which you do definitely not want to go into a straight one-on fight with are the Russian and the Chinese vehicles. The very high DPM of the T-72B3 / the T-90A, the Type 99 and the VT4, they all have extremely high DPM and damaging guns. Which means at the very least, while they don't have the armor or the hit points, they are made for DPS, which this tank is not. Even still, this tank, compared to them, is relatively slow firing at 7.81 seconds. This is pretty much standard for a NATO MBT at this point. Its damage compared to the 125s is pretty low. So while this could be the new meta vehicle when it comes to the ridiculous amount of hit points and penetration it has, a well-played, any one of those 6 vehicles I just said will be able to take you out, especially the Type 96B with its incredibly high punch and penetration. So this is going to be one of more of those slugging games. Generally speaking, this match wasn't too difficult. And now Hussein and its very high amount of hit points allows you to be able to weather the storm very well, and to be able, for the most part, be a lot less conflicted of enemies in the game. For instance, when I go up against the Leo 2 Revo, I know that as long as I don't keep it into a straight one-on-one fight with him, as long as I can trade shots with him, we'll pen each other, we'll do the same damage, but I have a lot more hit points than he does. And if he bounces once, it's game over for him. I do like this Greek camouflage of this, by the way. So Hussein hybrid over there. He's using the new commander, I believe, or Alicia, I'm not sure. But it isn't much of a problem. As long as I keep this lower plate hidden, they can't hit me. As you can see there's quite a bit. The driver's hatch can also be penned as well. but the ERA does make it a lot more difficult to pen it. So obviously, if you're in the O2 Revo, in fact, a good tactic to take this out might simply just be face hugging and firing into the driver's port over and over and over again, as the Al Hussein will have problems, even with 825 pan hitting that turret ring. So that guy was definitely taking Alicia, as you can see there. And for whatever reason, I have a Sprut with me. I'm unsure why he's over here, but he's gonna take a shot of damage. Not so much a good thing, and I went back expecting there to be more enemies. So I've done 3.7k and I've bounced a couple of rounds. So this is more of the usual playstyle you'll find with these things. As I've said before, you take a position, you hold it, and you slowly move up. This is not a sniper, it's not a camper, it's not a fast moving death machine, it's a slow moving fortress tank. And they're very much similar to the playstyle as the Challenger one on tier 7. So I guess it actually fits the line. While the Ariete is relegated to the French line, we finally have an entire line of British vehicles that actually play the same, at least from tier 7 to tier 9. So Reaver over there, as you can see there, he can pretty much butter my hull as much as he wants to, and it can be difficult to pen him there. So let's have a look at those post-game stats then to see what happened with those two games. But overall speaking, the first game went relatively well. 7.9k is nothing to sneeze at, and in fact that's a very good game, especially for a tier 8 NATO MBT with the relative lack of damage they put out. Bunch of spotting damage, bunch of regular damage, good hits on their Reaver and the Ramka overall. The heat rounds on that Ramka did wonderfully well, and it's definitely one of the good ways to take them out if they're hold down. Just blast heat into the turret over and over and over again. Second highest damage in the game, that Leclerc prototype, or third highest damage actually, that Leclerc prototype and the Leclerc as well did very well, however they lost. Total potential damage was 6,500, so not really many misses there, only about 5, that's okay really, with 13,000 damage mitigated. Now 13k is okay, but remember a lot of it was HE hits. But 4k was stopped by the APS, so the APS at least very much works. That's almost my entire hit points blocked, and a bunch ricocheted as well. So in total it's more of about 7,000 damage blocked, which is still relatively good, and it shows that the armor does hold up. The other game, however, Lost Island, more of the same, little less damage done, but it was a lot more hectic. A couple of 1 more shots done on the Leclercs and everything, with the other Al Hussein being buttered. BMPT done by Panzer, Steel Clubbers, doing the most damage of course. Only 1 shot missed, so pretty accurate overall, with a total potential damage mitigated of 2,600. So overall, are we looking at the new meta vehicle for tier 8? I believe yes. In a platoon of 3, even based on their own, that's 12,000 hit points, with the other 2 most popular commanders is probably going to be Alicia and Vincent. With Alicia you have 4,500 hit points, with Vincent you have the same as well, so overall, generally speaking, it's a choice between whether or not you want to do more reload and have better aim time, or if you just want to occasionally dump a missile on your enemies for 300 damage. Is this going to be the new meta? Possibly. The hit points and the penetration make this an extremely strong vehicle, and it is very much an upgraded and much better Challenger 1. So there you have it. Should you get it? Definitely. So this is the second last review actually. They're going to be the Leclerc prototype next, which I actually reviewed it first in terms of video play. So this is actually the second review I've done, but this is also the second last review to be. It's weird. Anyway, I'm still in the US for another 13 days at this point. So yeah, I guess I'll see you all when I come back to the UK. And take care for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little overview of the Al Hussein. It's a strong tank. And, well, it's going to be a definite bitch to take out. So take care for now, guys. And I'll see you all later. Bye.